Fire up that oven, folks. We're making biscuits and gravy. Hey everybody, this is Josie with Ozark Mountain Goats. First thing you need to do is get your oven on. And for me, I turn it on at 425, so I'm going to do that right now. Today I'm using buttermilk in my biscuits, but if you don't have buttermilk on hand, there's a really easy way to clabber your milk. And all you need is a healthy tablespoon of white vinegar added to a cup of milk, and that will do it. So if I'm doing it that way, then I do that about the time I turn my oven on and give it a few minutes to clabber, and then it'll be ready to go. But I'm actually using buttermilk today, so I'm not going to be doing that process. But anyway, my oven takes about 15 minutes to really heat up, and so I'm going to go ahead and cut up my butter and stick it back in the refrigerator, because I think cold butter is key to making good biscuits. So I just take a little paring knife and literally take a stick of butter and start cutting it into little pieces. I don't want it sitting out on the counter for 15 or 20 minutes while my oven heats up. It needs to stay cold. So back in the fridge this goes. So while you're waiting for your oven to heat up, go ahead and assemble your dry ingredients. Right here I've got 2 cups of all-purpose flour. Now I prefer all-purpose over self-rising flour. I'd rather add my own leavening ingredients. To that I'm going to be adding 1 teaspoon of salt, a half a teaspoon of baking soda, and 2.5 teaspoons of baking powder. So I can go ahead and do that now and get it mixed in. Again, I'm not ready to get started because my oven's not hot enough, and I wait until my oven has reached temperature, until my little light goes off and it tells me that it's ready before I mix up my biscuits, because they only take a minute or so to throw together. And so I'm going to set this aside, and when my oven is up to temperature, I'll be back and we'll put these together. My oven's up to temperature, so now I'm going to work in my butter. And you don't have to use butter. That's what I would recommend. But you could use shortening, or you could use lard. We love butter, so that's what we prefer, and not margarine. I mean real butter. Anyway, what you're going to do, but if you do use lard or shortening, I would also make sure it's cold. Works better. What you're going to do now is just take your hands, or if you want, you can use a pastry cutter. I prefer to use my hands, but you're going to mix that in and just kind of crumble it in. And this is going to take a minute to get the right texture. It should be kind of grainy and crumbly. But while I'm doing that, I want to give a shout out to Patara over at Appalachia Homestead. Several months ago, I happened to watch her video on these brown sugar biscuits that she makes. So Patara has a unique way of loading the biscuit mixture into her pan, and I'll show you as we go. But anyway, she doesn't know me, but I learned something from her, and after I started doing it this way, it's so much easier, and so I've just continued to do it like that rather than to make individual biscuits. So this is mixed up pretty well, and now I'm going to add my buttermilk. If you don't have buttermilk, I would recommend whole milk. I just think they make better biscuits, but I've used everything. I've used skim, 2%, 1%, whatever you've got will work. Anyway, I'm going to start adding in my buttermilk, and it is so thick that it takes more than a cup. If you were using skim milk or 2%, a cup would probably be plenty. But with buttermilk, it just takes more. It's so thick and heavy. So I've actually got 1.25 cups here, and we'll see if that does the trick. Yep, that did it. Not quite 1.25 cups. Anyway, I just liberally flour my surface and plop your biscuit dough right out on the counter. You're going to get messy doing this, but that's okay. Then I just sprinkle some flour on top, and I knead it maybe about 3 or 4 times. Not too much. You want to be kind of gentle with it. About like that. I don't use a rolling pin. I just flatten it out with my hands and make it circular. Now at this point, most people would take a cookie cutter or biscuit cutter and start making individual biscuits. From Patara, I learned something different. What she does is she cuts it into long strips, like this. And then she takes those strips, and by the way, I'm using a cast iron skillet. You can use, you know, these dark coated baking pans, and they work really well too. But I'm using cast iron today. And then she just takes these strips and lays them out in her pan like that. Get a little flour, this is stuck. And it'll fill up. This is a 10.5-inch cast iron skillet. It'll fill that up, and then she takes a knife or whatever and just kind of makes little squares out of it. So it looks like that. That's all you got to do. I like this method because I think it uses up all of your dough rather than constantly having to reform it and cut more individual biscuits. Anyway, I'm going to get this in the oven. My oven's at 425, and I'm going to set this for 20 minutes. So that gives us 20 minutes to get our gravy made. So I'm going to do a quick cleanup and then meet you over at the stove. Okay, what I've got here is 1/2 pound of breakfast sausage. Now I would just suggest using whatever brand you prefer. You know, we don't raise and butcher our own hogs, so this is store-bought, and I like Jimmy Dean, just regular breakfast sausage. And I've got 1/2 pound in here. Most recipes for gravy are probably going to be for 1 pound, but I don't really think that's necessary. I think I can achieve great results with just 1/2 pound of meat, so that's what I'm using. But anyway, you'll also want to have some flour on hand. For my recipe, I use 1/4 cup of all-purpose flour, and I also add some butter to it. Nowadays, you know, sausage is so lean, it just doesn't really create any drippings. And so I add 3 tablespoons of butter to my roux. A basic roux is just equal parts of flour and drippings. That could be bacon grease, it could be lard, it could be shortening, it could be butter, whatever, you know, drippings from a roast. But anyway, because I don't get any grease out of this sausage, or very little, I'm going to add 3 tablespoons of butter. So you're going to fry up your sausage until the pink disappears. Don't overcook it, because once you add your flour, you're going to continue to cook it for a little bit, and if you over fry it in the beginning, it makes it kind of tough. So I'll do that, and once the meat is all cooked up, we'll go from there. So my sausage is just barely cooked through, and I'm going to add my 3 tablespoons of butter. So as you can see, my butter is melted, and now I'm going to stir in my flour. I just kind of sprinkle it around, and there's enough butter and pan drippings in there to soak all this up. And once you get that mixed in real well, Then you can begin to let it simmer a little bit. And what that will do is kind of help cook out that raw flour taste. So I usually let mine simmer for, 2 or 3 minutes anyway. And it might get kind of a nutty brown color. And then after that, you can begin whisking in your milk. See the nutty brown color? All right, I'm going to back off on the heat and slowly start whisking in my milk. This should take at least 2 cups, maybe closer to 3. And it really just depends on how you like it. If you like a real thick gravy, use less milk. And if you like it a little thinner, add more milk to it. As this heats back up, it will thicken. So I'm just going to keep stirring this for a couple of minutes until I get it to just the right consistency. You're going to want to salt and pepper it at this time. We like pepper, so I put it in pretty liberally. Matter of fact, you could call it pepper gravy. And I also add a pinch of sugar. This will make about 3 cups of gravy, and for Jim and I, that will be enough for 2 meals because we also have a biscuit or 2 with butter and jelly. Jam, I should say. That blackberry jam we made this summer is fantastic. Anyway, I think the gravy's ready. My biscuits are done, so I'm going to get them out of the oven. Oh, this is hot. Isn't that pretty? And I've got the cutest little gravy boat. I got it at Goodwill for $1. Holds about 3 cups, which is just about perfect. So there you have it, folks. Homemade biscuits and gravy. Yum. Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed this video. Please be sure to like, subscribe, ring that bell, share, and we will catch you later.